For our first masterclass today, I'm joined by Sarah Cox, Marketing Director of Volkswagen UK, and Stuart Miles, MD of UK and Ireland CDK Global, and also a patron of the Automotive 30% Club. So welcome, Sarah and Stuart. We're going to talk about collecting gender data to establish the current starting point in the business, and also starting to close the gender gap by reaching out to new talent pools. Shortly, we'll hear from Sarah about actions taken by Volkswagen Group to collect and monitor female representation data and use it to create gender balance plans. And Stuart will then outline actions taken by CDK Global to reach out to female talent pools. But first, let me set the scene by sharing some thoughts on how to tackle this. Before you set off on your journey to achieve a gender balanced business, you must know your starting point. It's amazing how many companies spend money on diversity projects without knowing the actual level of gender inequality and diversity in their organisations. Then you must create a plan to ensure you reach your goals, noting that what doesn't get measured doesn't get done. Here are some tips for collecting data and identifying priorities for action. First, collect the gender and ethnicity data for all current roles. This will enable you to identify if you have gender segregation by job role, management level and function, and also pockets of gender balance and diversity in certain work teams and significant imbalance in others. Then analyse the data for the top 3 levels of the business. These are the leadership roles that are so critical to ensure an inclusive culture is driven from the top and optimal decision making takes place. When you know where you are in terms of diverse female representation, you must set your long-term goal to achieve a better gender balance and break it into smaller, achievable steps in the short and medium term. Focus on achieving a critical mass. Equal representation isn't required to change team performance, but 1/3 in relative terms and at least 3 in absolute numbers changes the group dynamics to achieve a positive benefit. Your target should be a minimum of 1/3 diverse women in the short to medium term to change the cultural performance, to set the momentum for achieving a longer-term goal of parity. Analyse the promotion rates of men and women and identify if and why you're not promoting proportionately. Also, review lateral moves, demotions, foreign assignments, relocations, and external hires by gender. It's important to analyse turnover and returner rates by gender. Often there is balance in those leaving, but returners or new senior hires are men. If, however, more women than men are leaving, there's a reason why women are not thriving in those roles. Identify priorities for going fast first. Target specifically where to appoint more women. It's better to address gender balance with a high proportion of women in just a few groups rather than put single women alone in many groups. It's also important to play to your strengths in the very short term. Your people analytics investigations will have identified where you already have women and inclusive leaders. Recruit more women to join them. Hold senior management to account. Senior leadership can delegate responsibility for taking action to build gender-balanced, diverse teams, but not accountability. It's imperative to monitor the data at CEO level within your board's business management dashboard and cascade the diversity goals via the management team's objectives. The next step is to cast your net wide and engage with new sources of skills to look for the best person for each job. You can't settle for simply hiring those who discovered your company. You must go and find those talented, diverse women who might not even have you on their career radar. So you must reach out to new talent pools. You should never discriminate against men during the recruitment process, but you should actively increase the number of women you can select from. There are several sources of female talent that you should reach out to. There will be high-performing women in HR, training, finance, marketing, and administrative roles within your company. Development pathways could be created to enable them to move across functions into more operational roles or those with profit and loss responsibility that are deemed as business critical and are important stepping stones to the top team. I personally moved from HR to sales within Ford Motor Company and found the skill set employed to be virtually identical. Another pool is women who've left your company, many of whom will have climbed to the career ladder to senior roles. You shouldn't hold a grudge over apparent disloyalty. It's likely they would have stayed if you'd had the conditions in which they could thrive. Track down your female diaspora via LinkedIn and negotiate their return. Experience gained at a competitor or supplier could be extremely useful. Also, consider hiring women returners. It's a myth that women lose their skills and experience when they take a career break. In fact, they develop their skills even further. Project management, leadership, problem solving, crisis management, and conflict resolution are all required of a parent. Also, there are many talented women in leadership roles in sector and external professional networks. These women may be looking for opportunities in organisations that have made a firm commitment to improve the gender balance. Promote your inclusive values on social media platforms and engage with women's networks and other professional groups to identify potential hires. Finally, it's important to build a female talent pipeline for the future, so encourage more young women in education to apply for roles in your business. By positioning yourself as an inclusive employer of choice in the community and build relationships with schools, colleges and girls' networks. Look to support activities that encourage more girls to consider careers in your industry, such as our Inspiration for Innovation Network and Inspiring Automotive Women Day. It's essential to engage with schools to tackle stereotypes at a young age and encourage girls and boys to widen their career choices beyond outdated norms. So in summary, once you've analysed your gender data and identified which roles to prioritise, you must reach out to the many deep pools of diverse, talented women both within your company and beyond to fill the jobs. So now I'm going to hand over to Sarah, who will talk about Volkswagen Group UK's approach to collecting data and planning for progress. So over to you, Sarah.
Thanks, Julia. Yeah, so this is something that Volkswagen Group's been doing for quite some time. The data is collected at the point of recruitment, and we hold that within a central database. We also have an online HR portal where all staff are asked to keep up-to-date demographic information. The gender data is then collected at all levels and all grades across the organisation, which allows us to segment the data through the whole life cycle of employment. So from the attract and the recruiting stage, through our talent programs, and also through sort of exit interviews. And we see it reported by brand and function, by job band, and also by job type. So putting out things like field force, for example. And then the gender data is compiled by the HR teams into a monthly reporting pack, as it is in any other business performance KPIs. And that forms part of our board of management monthly pack, as well as the monthly business performance packs that then go to the brand and the functions leadership teams as well. And I think seeing the data as part of that BAU operational agenda has really helped with the awareness across all the leadership and the management teams as it's reviewed so regularly. And from these reviews then comes our gender balance plans for each, again, brand or function across our business. And the purpose, of course, of those is to address the data. I guess we're not apologetic about wanting to achieve gender equality and gender advocacy across the business. And this heightened focus through the accountable action plans and the clear targets has helped drive those results and continues to focus our progress. Currently, Volkswagen Group has 44.9% female workforce, which was slightly above the 2020 aspiration of 44%. And we're at 24.3% for the top 3 senior job bands, which is slightly below the aspirational target of 30%. But we're making progress. And we have an aspirational target of female representation per job brand as well. That's sort of at 50% in the lower bands to help us build that pipeline, and then move to sort of 30% as we get into the top bands of heads of business and our board management. And those targets and action plans are really helping us normalise the need for diverse representation across the business. And that's making us carve out more dedicated time to be talking about the talent development and the actions that we need to take across the business too. Of course, I think it's fair to say there's pros and cons, and it's not always easy. Sometimes you have to take decisions that aren't necessarily so popular, or sometimes force some positive actions. But we've also found it's really important to test different approaches as well. For example, within our Inspire talent stream, we strive to have a 50% balance for our annual cohort of our management development programme. And in 2019, we missed that. But in 2020, we saw through more focused earlier succession conversations, as a result of the gender balance plans, we did achieve that balance. We also aspire for a 50-50 ratio for applicants for our top 3 senior job bands when recruiting. Of course, the best person for the job is always the one that will be appointed, but the ratio encourages sort of more diversity of candidates' experience for the hiring managers to really think deeper, to look harder. Have we searched and encouraged all of those people that should be applying to apply for those roles? We trialled for a time the interview panels being conducted by a mixed gender panel, actually, but we didn't see a necessary associated benefit from that. So that's an action that we stopped. So we tested and then we stopped. We're strong believers in trying things out. If we're not seeing an impact either way, we're not forcing a process, but we're open and honest about that as well. And again, that's come from that sort of planning and that focus that we've got. A lot of the gender action plans are now looking at how we support females moving into the more senior roles across the business. Promotion of our informal flexible working approach has seen an increase in our female applicants in those more senior roles recently. And in fact, the COVID-19 factor has gone on to prove even more so how successful flexible working can be at all levels across the business. It's kind of helping normalise the flexible working for all employees. I think it's opened up the mindset of working from home, balancing working different patterns of hours, and also job shares as well. So that's really helping unlock more for us. I think what's important is that we share these success stories across the business in order to gain more of the traction and the change. The action plans also pick up on areas where we know we have room for improvement, and there's some common themes. So, for example, staying in touch with employees on maternity or parental leave, making sure we have a continuous dialogue with those people, and the information is flowing backwards and forwards, and we can help people come back and transition into the business in a more positive, supportive way as well. And I think with more to be done in staying connected with the females that leave our business. As you were saying, the people will leave for a variety of reasons, but we know there's a finite amount of female talent in the automotive industry, and there's nothing to say that people won't rejoin your organisation in the future. So we need to continue with those networks and continue with that contact. Of course, we also need to be thinking differently about whether we always recruit from the same sector, and the benefits of more diverse backgrounds can speak for themselves. Encouraging this change of mindset is really important in our action plans too, and speaking openly about success stories again as well. So last year, for example, Audi appointed a new head of marketing, and she joined from Amazon. So not only a great high-profile female hire, but one that really demonstrated diversity of experience and transferable skills that are highly valued by Volkswagen Group. I think the culture and the mindset towards gender balance it's continued to change and will continue to develop over time, as it has in relation to sort of other topics. You know, we've seen that change with maternity, paternity, and parental leave, which the group have a good uptake on. And of course, there's always more to do. But you know, I think having the base data is critical. And it's about being able to set those aspirational targets, track how well we're doing, and make a plan in order to continue to progress in the right direction.
Great, thank you so much, Sarah. So much information there, but it's really good to hear how Volkswagen Group have very much taken the approach of making their strategy data-driven, and also this concept of testing ideas out, and you know, if they don't work, then move on to try something else. And, you know, constantly innovating in that way. So thanks very much, Sarah. So now Stuart is going to outline the actions taken by CDK Global to reach out to female talent pools. So over to you, Stuart.
Yeah, thanks, Julia. I think you know, we're continuing to be on our journey right now, and reaching out to the female talent pools is vital to the sustainability of our business. So what we have done at CDK is really looked at 4 distinct areas, which is great to say, Julia. You know, you've covered a couple of the items, as has Sarah. It's really important, and it starts really with what Sarah was talking about around the data. You know, benchmarking, and we've had to benchmark really our core functions against the wider automotive and also from where we are, software industry, to understand where we can improve our ratios, and then once you understand the core data, you can then start to work an action plan to target, to attract that new talent. And certainly what we found at CDK is that our IT teams, implementation, engineering, sales, they are the least represented by women in our organization. And really that's where the ground has to be made up. So what do we do about going around attracting that talent, you know, from that benchmarking data? Well, first we have to really look at how we go about doing that. And I think there's some simple things like I read an article on Glassdoor last year. It was around 10 ways to remove gender bias job listings. And really, if you look at your job specs, you know, how have they been written? Who has written those job specs? And the importance about the language that is used within them. So our job specs were full for our techie roles, was full of things like analyze and determine, which have been typically associated with more male traits, whereas words instead that we should be using are like collaborate and support, and they're considered more diverse and inclusive. So what we've learned is that we need to avoid using those male-orientated titles and pronouns, and start to use more positive, inclusive language. And that sounds pretty basic, but go back and read your job specs now of what you're putting out there, and I think you will hopefully see what I mean by that. The second area that we've worked hard on is our networking. We continually look to build a network of female candidates on a proactive basis. So that's not going out, you know, we require this person in this role now. It's about actually starting in advance, so we know what the pool of talent is out there, so we can start to introduce them to CDK ahead of opportunity coming to us. You know, it's about being on the front foot. And we've worked hard to network through recruitment and university events. University is a great place to start. You know, we've got a successful graduate program. We've launched a CDK Dealer Tech competition, which is a competition to university students right now about allowing them to come up with great ideas on how to support the automotive retail network. And that's a great way for us to introduce our industry and show them how exciting it is, but also work with female students who may not have even heard of CDK before, have never considered a career in automotive or technology, but they are people that we're reaching out to that have the skills and personality to build that career. My last 2 quick points are really around marketing your business. You know, is your brand inclusive? Is it exciting enough? Does it reflect who you are and what you're doing? And at CDK, we're going through a really cool time at the moment. It's very exciting. You've probably read about it, but we're embarking on creating a new brand in the next quarter. We're going to have probably a new name on the back of this as well, and everything that we're thinking of and working with our branding company is about how can we look in the eyes of new candidates. You know, what does that look like in the eyes of people that we want to get into the business, so we can get the best people, but also retain the quality that we have within the business. So the culture of our business has to be one that doesn't deter anyone from applying and attracts the talent we want to be successful. And Julia, the last one really is a shout out to you, your team, and also all the members of the 30% Club. I think our perception as a business is that we want it to be an open place to work, and that's heightened by the work that we do with you. I think we're lucky that we've got a strong network of people like Sarah and a host of others that we can learn from. And that results in that at CDK, we've got a really strong group of female volunteers who want to talk openly about what it's like to work at CDK. And that's so important because potential female candidates can hopefully see that we are trying so hard to maintain and build on what is an inclusive work culture. Yeah, and I think that can only set us up to be more successful in the future.
Thanks, Stuart. That's really great to hear. Thank you for the shout out as well about the role of the 30% Club, because it is absolutely our goal is to try and help companies collaborate with each other, because, you know, everybody wins. If our reputation as a sector is improved, we all win as a result of that. So thanks for those points, Stuart. So let's move on to have a discussion, and I'll ask you some questions. So I'm going to turn to Sarah first. So I know that at Volkswagen Group you monitor the gender data at the very top level, but how do you get to a stage where the middle and junior management understand what the data is actually saying and get their buy-in to use it to drive change?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the starting point around the data, that it's cascaded through from the board of management reports into the monthly pack that comes into the leadership reporting packs as well. And then therefore the leadership team and the brand or function should then be sharing that with their first line middle managers as well, and getting them involved in the conversations and supporting the plans, because they're ultimately the ones probably recruiting and managing more of that direct talent through the business. But I think the data's not enough. There's plenty of other activities we're trying to do to really get into the hearts and minds of everybody and understand the importance and the critical nature of buying into this area. So as I said before, it's a really open topic. Gender answer is a really open topic across the group, and it's discussed across many levels, and we use our open communications platforms, so our intranet for all of our staff, for example. And within that, we'll do feature articles around core job roles traditionally where we see less females apply for them. And we may pick out stories around individuals who have about their career paths and how they've moved around different roles in the business as well, and how they've got to where they've got to. We also openly share other data as well, so gender pay gap data. We have really transparent predetermined salary bands, for example, across the group as well. So all of this aids that context of cultural change and the diversity, and keeps that sort of strategic front of mind for the line managers as well. But then we actively get them involved with things. So, for example, we have a great mentor program running across the business, and the middle managers upwards are the ones that are acting as mentors to the more junior staff members. And this could be somebody that is on a talent program, but it could just be somebody that's joined the organisation, wants some help and support as well. So we're getting more of our managers hands-on with people development and talent nurturing through the business. The managers, of course, also the ones that are involved with the assessment processes for incoming student and graduate cohorts, where we have gender balance aspiration targets as well. So again, they're hands-on, actively involved in selecting the people coming into the business and aware of our aspirations. We also have a diversity guild formed of several employee network groups, or ENG groups, focused across diversity and inclusion, and they're chaired by our middle managers as well. So again, hands-on and leading by example. Our Driven Women, ENG, is well established and well attended, and they not only influence and provide feedback on the gender action plans across the group, but they schedule loads of events and support sessions through the year as well. So an example could be a session on interview confidence. And some of the talks involve external speakers and some are internal. Some sessions are run for just a female cohort, and others are attended by male colleagues as well. So it's a real mixture. There's lots of opportunity for people to get involved in those middle managers. I spoke last December at our Driven Women event on networking skills. And to be honest, it's the first time I put myself out there. It's taken me several years to be comfortable being at the front of these types of conversations. But now I truly recognise that I have a bigger role to play by leading by example and sharing more of my personal experiences, and in particular sharing some of the vulnerabilities, the things that I still get nervous about, and have doubts and things like that. I think it's really important that we share those stories to aspiring young females, but also to my leadership peers as well, male and female, to make us all stop and think more about what you can do to break down the barriers and to drive the change and act as role models, as middle managers and leaders in the business. And the talks are great because they get momentum going, and of course word of mouth, and we're seeing more and more people engage with those every month. We've also run some sessions across the group for those middle and senior managers as well. So last year we ran a virtual event with Silla Snowball, which was great to discuss the gender balance topic across the business as well. And that's a great way to engage and inspire everybody as well. So I think what we found at Volkswagen Group is you have to use a mixture of platforms and methods and influencers to just keep the dialogue front of mind across those sort of middle tiers as well.
Lots of great stuff taking place there at Volkswagen Group UK, but it's really interesting to hear how actually it's the middle and junior management that are really becoming kind of the change agents, by involving them and then taking a big role in this, that they obviously will take that on further with them as well as they develop up through the company.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know also, Sarah, just staying with you for a moment. So I know you mentioned earlier on that Volkswagen Group also engages with female talent pools. So can you just tell us a little bit more about those particular activities?
Yeah, so we do a few different things. One of the things, the board of management have a dedicated session once a year on female talent across the business and for succession planning. And then this is followed up by the brands and functions leadership teams as well. One of the things that comes out of that is identifying board members and heads of business sponsors or mentors for our key female talent across the business as well. And I think that's become a really powerful way of building individuals' confidence and raising a lot of our female members of staff awareness of their own transferable skills. As you were saying at the beginning, it's really important for them to understand how they can transition into different roles, maybe not those ones that necessarily have a stronger female presence normally taking those roles. And then I think having someone like a board member act as your advocate and be able to call up a colleague, open a door for you, give you a referral, it's really powerful and also is helping build the profile as well. And it's really rewarding for those people that are sponsors too. The talent review is also where we discuss who would benefit from being involved in Automotive 30% Club, like the mentor program, either as a mentor or as a mentoree as well. And we also then review the pipeline of male and female talent for our internal talent programs. As I said earlier, we have an aspiration of hitting that 50-50 split across the cohort, and we run a couple of different management development programs for different points of entry across the business. And the same applies to the student and graduate intakes as well. So there's different pools of people through the business. We also, on occasion, run what we call career speed dating sessions. So where we encourage employees to sign up for sort of 15-minute quick career chats with sort of middle managers, heads of business that are in that specific job function. And it allows them to explore more around what that particular career would be like in that area. What's brilliant is using those to bring focus to the roles that traditionally don't see as many female applicants. So we're similar, sometimes the sales roles, product roles, things like that. But this is like a less pressurized way to have a career chat rather than the sort of formal coffee catch up that was sort of there before. It allows people again to uncover potential succession plans and understand their transferable skills and how they can move across the business in different roles as well. We also have a work stream in the D&I Guild around called Inspire, where we're looking to inspire young people, young children, people from the age of sort of 7 to 16 to consider a career in the automotive industry, understand what we're about, and helping them equip themselves to come into automotive careers. So we work with schools and colleges and universities, some other organisations like the Scouts as well, and help to provide sort of a pathway and some inspiration, also some career learning opportunities, similar to what Stuart was saying as well. So we're looking to encourage that diversity of talent pools in entry level. Apprenticeships as well is really important. And as I said, we had 52% female intake on our student programme last year, and 85% actually on the last 2 years combined on the graduate intake as well. So we sort of really moved on in that area. I think there's always more to be done, more pools of female talent that we need to make sure we're staying close to. So those that are on maternity leave, for example. The networking is critical internally and externally. And as you said, social media these days, there's no excuse to lose contact with those networks of female talent that have worked with you before, but also to go out and forge new connections and bring people into the organisation. And of course, we look to drive the advocacy of our female employees through awards such as the Autocar Great British Women and the Automotive 30% Club inspiring automotive women events too.
Of which you are a winner, Sarah, this year. Congratulations, by the way. So thanks. So many activities going on at Volkswagen Group. So let me turn to Stuart now. And so I know that you undertake a lot of outreach activities with your graduates. And in addition to them being fantastic role models for youngsters, what benefit do you think that the school's engagement has brought to them as junior members of your team that could actually help with their personal development?
Yeah, sure. I mentioned earlier our successful graduate program, and it's a great question because it's really positive that almost all of our UK graduates have put themselves forward to volunteer with student engagement activities, and that's so important because they are closest in terms of age to the school population. So, I guess this means that they are more aware than others about what the age group might be thinking or feeling. And generally, we found that this means it's easier for them to build a rapport with the students that perhaps other members of the team do. They're probably seen as a lot cooler than I am. Apparently, saying cool is not cool anymore either. So it just shows how distant and removed I am. But for me, it's really important that the graduates work with them because by doing so, they've been able to gain a sense of and perception across the students of how automotive and technology roles are viewed, and they can feed that back to us. And by opening those conversations, they can certainly plant a seed of awareness to the students for what opportunities does exist within automotive, how exciting the industry is, and also career options with technology and automotive. And that might feel like a long way off for some of the students, but do you know what? You have to start to talk to them at an early age because that's when they start to reflect on their GCSEs that are coming up and subsequently their A levels. So let's show them what and how exciting automotive and technology can be. To your question directly, I guess for the graduates themselves, what I've seen within the business is some fantastic examples of how the volunteering has raised their confidence levels and their voice within the business. There's been some really positive examples of their work we've shared across the business, and it's really raised their profiles, and I've mentioned their confidence as well. I'll give you an example. On International Women's Day, I was really pleased to share a live company panel with one of our graduates, Bessim. She eloquently provided her thoughts on how CDK can continue to build an inclusive culture. And that's really important that their voice is heard. So for me, Julia, I think school engagement, therefore, has had the double benefit for us that it supports our development of our own employees whilst building that potential employee base for the future.
Great, and thanks so much for being the sponsor of our Inspiration for Innovation network that enables us to engage with schools, albeit virtually this year. Sadly, can't go into the schools, but it's great that so many of your team want to help in that way.
Yeah.
So, just touching on, I think you mentioned before that about your role as both automotive and tech. So it's kind of a double whammy, isn't it, in terms of trying to attract women to those two sectors in any kind of large numbers. So, as you know, as the managing director yourself, what key piece of data, people analytics data, do you look at and to enable to make decisions and decide what actions need to be taken? And how important is it that gender data is regularly analysed and acted upon by your top team?
Yeah, it's so important that you work on that data because you won't know where your gaps are. So you really need to collect that data and work with it. I'll give you some stats in terms of background. In tech business, for example, around 30% of staff are women. The example, Apple is 32%, Google's around 31%. And in automotive, this falls off a cliff. You know, the average is 14% for UK manufacturing in automotive and 16% in auto retail. So, you know, the stats there speak for themselves as the problem that we share within our industry. At CDK International, we're a global business. We've got 70-30 male to female splits. And that drops slightly in the UK. There's 27% of females in our UK business right now. So for me, what we need to do is understand how we can attract more females into our industry. It's important that we also have a clear path to senior positions, and that's kept open as possible with a diverse leadership team. And you know, UK leadership team is up at 36% female. So you know, we need to share that ideas and inspire a diverse workforce. That is so important. I mentioned earlier about benchmarking across automotive and technology, and that's really useful to compare ourselves to other businesses. What I think is important as well is that not only understand where your gaps lie, you know, you need to take steps to attract and retain women, such as less emphasis on automotive and technical experience. We are an industry that automatically goes for automotive, and there's a merry-go-round of people within our industry, that keep coming in. We will never move forward if we keep recruiting the same people. So we need more focus in recruitment on problem solving and interpersonal skills. We also need to review, you know, look at the data and review the mentoring program. So young female graduates have role models and senior members of the team that they can discuss ideas and share their issues with. And what we've also introduced is vital is mixed gender interviews, and this is to ensure that we reduce that unconscious bias that does exist, in all organisations. Okay, so having those mixed gender interviews is really important. I think it's really vital as well to mention that we need to keep talking about the issue. I posted earlier that, for goodness sake, it's 2021 and we're still discussing this as an issue. So we need to keep discussing it because it is. And as managers in the business, they need to show that gender balance is very much today in 2021 an important issue. And the more we highlight it and live those values, the more likely we are to see improvements across the business. Sarah mentioned this earlier, but I just want to stress on it too, is what the pandemic actually is whilst creating a huge challenge, has probably prompted us to rethink the way that we all work. And remote working has shifted the balance between work and family life. I'd like to think that CDK, we've always provided that flexibility as required, but I think COVID-19 has actually given us the opportunity to rethink this and maybe consider new ways of working, which we may find in the future benefits the working arrangements of women further.
Thanks. So much good stuff there going on in CDK. Thanks for that. And I wanted to kind of just broaden the topic a little bit wider now, because as you're probably both aware, I revised our aim this year to be 30% of key leadership roles to be filled by diverse women by 2030. I inserted the word diverse because not because it was never an intention to do that, but because I felt we had to actually specifically state that the women that we want to hire, it should be a huge variety of women of all ethnicities and ages, etc. So I'm sure, I'm going to put this to both of you. So I'm sure that when you've both analysed your data, you'll have identified that there's not only a female representation issue, there's actually an issue in the whole sector as well, that the women that we do have are actually not very diverse. So how can we reach out to women of colour, for example, and be an attractive career destination for them? So I'll turn to you first, please, Sarah.
Sure. I think it's the wider, broader topic really about creating a multicultural environment within our organisations. We have, as part of the D&I Guild, we have a cultural diversity employment engagement group as well. And of course, all the ENGs work in collaboration with each other. But the mission there is to make sure all our colleagues are raising the awareness of diversity, that we're educating people and creating inclusive and progressive workplaces, and promoting that diversity, challenging the biases that may be there, and speaking out is really important around any discrimination in our organisation, but also the wider society as well. And that engagement group are really driving that advocacy and the awareness internally and externally via, again, the different communications platforms and social media as well, like LinkedIn. I think what's critical when we're talking about this is that we're always authentic and we're building awareness and sharing real human stories. So some of the things that we do is we have a cultural calendar of events across the business and communication points throughout the year. And one of those examples would be last October, we celebrated Black History Month, recognising the bigger issues and external issues, but we created a talking forum and not being afraid to talk about some of those bigger topics, some of those sensitive issues that sometimes deemed awkward as well. And as I said, it's about the group's focus on creating that multicultural, inclusive environment for men and women alike, to be honest, and talking openly in the external platforms hopefully helps people understand the attraction and the inclusiveness and the overall nature of our company, to be honest.
Thanks, Sarah. And Stuart, over to you.
Yeah, it is a really interesting topic, and since we introduced the graduate program, we've taken into CDK, you know, we have over 50% female graduates, and those women are a mix of racial backgrounds. I have to admit, you know, that gender diversity had been our first focus, but there's no shying away from the fact that racial diversity is just as important, and we acknowledge that women of Black, Asian, and minority ethnic background groups have certainly their own challenges in terms of recruitment and progression. I think at CDK, we need to do better at measuring this and gain a greater understanding. We are a multicultural, international organisation. We do a weekly employee survey, and one of the regular questions is gauging a benchmark on understanding, are we an inclusive organisation to all? And I'm pleased to say that our employees, you know, rank heavily in backing us up that we actually are. But we've still got a journey to go on. We need to do better in education, marketing of job roles, branding. You know, all of this will help us improve the numbers. We firmly believe that we want to recruit the right person for the right role. But our question mark is actually, do we find the best person if we are not reaching out to the full talent pool? And I know that through who we are getting through for interviews, it's not as diverse as I'd like it to be. So we are not getting the full talent. I've got a couple of stats here that I picked up as well. Actually, I just you know, call them out. I think it's just for the people know. Women of colour represent 18% of entry-level professionals, and that's only 3% of C-suite executives, and that was a McKinsey report from last year. So I think we all have to stand up and be counted here and realise that our own differences internally and acknowledge them, so we can actually project that externally and make sure that we are an attractive, diverse organisation for all future employees.
Wise words, Stuart, there, and thanks very much, Sarah. And I'm afraid we're out of time. I had so many more questions that I wanted to ask. But the good news is that Stuart and Sarah will be joining us later for the last session of the day, where the audience can submit questions. So please do start submitting your questions now for Stuart and Sarah. Thanks so much, Stuart and Sarah, for sharing your advice and the best practice that's going on in your organisations. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
And now we're going to take a short break, but please do join us after the break for our second masterclass.